Hello, BookTube. I have an annoying little love poem to read you today for our poem on this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. Bright, sunny, and warm. The calm before the storm. Unfortunately, I think days of rain are coming. Uninterrupted days of rain, I think, are coming. I think they'll be moving in later tonight. But we're going back to the Oxford Book of English Verse. This is the Quiller Couch edition, the updated and enlarged edition that he did. I put a cover of my own on there, and boy oh boy was this worth it for $1 at the Prattle. This was really worth it. We're going to go back in time to Shakespeare's day. This is my Be a Reader bookmark. We're going to go back in time to Shakespeare's day to Robert Greene. This is his poem Fawnia, Fawnia. Ah, were she pitiful as she is fair, or but as mild as she is seeming so, then were my hopes greater than my despair, then all the world were heaven, nothing woe. Ah, were her heart relenting as her hand, that seems to melt even with the mildest touch, then knew I where to seat me in a land under wide heavens, but yet there is not such. So as she shows she seems the budding rose, yet sweeter far than is an earthly flower. Sovereign beauty, like the spray she grows, compassed she is with thorns and cankered flower. Yet were she willing to be plucked and worn, she would be gathered, though she grew on thorn. Ah, when she sings all music else be still, for none must be compared to her note. Ne'er from the morning singer's swelling throat, ne'er breathes such glee from Philoma's bill. Ah, when she riseth from her blissful bed, she comforts all the world as doth the sun, and at her sight the night's foul vapours fled. When she is set, the gladsome day is done. O glorious sun, imagine me the west, shine in my arms, and set thou in my breast. And that is Elizabethan love poem. It's the type that you see in anthologies like this, as thick as weeds on the ground. It's singing about how beautiful, how fair, and yet how cruel and uncaring is the loved object of the poem. That bit about imagine me, the West, shine in my arms and set thou in my breast, that reminds you of a bit from Romeo and Juliet. Well, yeah, it's because Shakespeare wrote a ton of this kind of crap as well. It was a poetic fad. It was the ruling poetic fad to write this kind of love poem over and over and over again to an imagined lover who is beautiful and yet distant, who is delicate and yet uncaring. I am dying, I am pining of love for this romantic figure, and yet will she show me any mercy, even though it would reignite my universe? No, she will not, and so I am destined to pine forever. A lot of this kind of nonsense was directed at Queen Elizabeth, who at the time was not a young woman. Made it even more ridiculous. The hyperbole, the superlatives made it even more ridiculous by their object. And all of it is just, it bothers me, of course, no matter how technically proficient it is. This is a very technically proficient poem. But it bothers me for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which is that poetic fads are always annoying. They are always annoying. We are in the grip of one now. It's been true for 70 years. This kind of love poem lasted for at least 70 years. These fads can have a very long lifespan. The current fad in poetry is complete obscurity. So I had a little green toy truck when I was a child, and I used to run it up the walls. I used to wish that my truck could run up the walls. And I'm going, no one knows about that. My parents are dead. My siblings don't remember it. You, as an audience, certainly don't know about it, and I'm not going to tell you about it. But I am going to make a whole poem that depends on that. And if you don't know that that is something from my own memory, if I have not told you that, the poem will be completely incomprehensible. And I'm certainly not going to sweeten the deal with poetic beauty. Please, that's for the patriarchy. That is the fad now in poetry since the Beats, is that you haul out completely autobiographical, sealed in, hermeneutically sealed obscurities and build your poem around it. And then just dare your black turtleneck audience in the basement of the Cantab Lounge to say, well, I didn't get that at all. that isn't good in the slightest. I'm a reader who doesn't know you personally. If I don't get the poem because of that fact, it's a bad poem, because you would be driven out. As soon as your strawberry daiquiri was over, you would be driven out of the Cantab Lounge basement, and you would be forced to deal with the open sunlight. And that is still enforced today. That if you read something, you think, well, that's just prose, or that's just garbage, or both. The instant response from the tiny, tiny fraction of poetic savants out there will be, you just didn't get it. That's all. You're just a Philistine of some kind. And to which I always want to respond by saying the reason why it's such a tiny, tiny group of people who read poetry for enjoyment is because of that. You have driven away the audience who would read it for enjoyment. And this is of a similar vein. Fawnia is the type of, lesbia or whatever fixture of this kind of poetry that, is an idealized version of some Eastgate prostitute that Robert Greene probably knew. Although I think it's extremely likely that Robert Greene never got any closer to a woman's tender hands than he could help. I think it's probably likely that he played for the other team. The point is, we don't know. The hints that I think we have pretty much strongly point in that direction. In other words, it just underscores how artificial this all is. So that the only thing I think you can go to a poem like this for is its scansion, its formal beauty. At least that's my opinion. Maybe some of you are Robert Greene fans. I don't know. I think we'll catapult forward in time for our poem next time. But that's Fawnia by Robert Greene for today. So I will wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.